Hello, church. This is video number 3, and this is a third reason why joining or partnering with a denomination, I think, will further our mission of making Christ the center of all things and making disciples of all nations. Depending on your background, leadership, especially in America, is usually top-down. Right? You have a charismatic leader who is gifted in teaching and communicating gospel truths, and then he has other men who usually affirm what he's doing or try to press on some things. But for the most part, when you're in a non-denominational church, you create your own bylaws. You basically can, do whatever you want in some respects. And again, I'm speaking broadly here. I'm not speaking of every non-denominational churches. I was part of one that was healthy. So I don't want to throw a broad brush there. However, if you've been part of churches where that's non-denominational, many times it is a lead pastor, a senior pastor, and several other people kind of supporting that pastor. The problem with this is that biblically the scriptures teach that the church is to have elders or presbyters, men who are all have a voice in the spiritual formation and oversight of the church. The pastor, he's chief among equals. However, he's also held accountable by these elders. And that's what we have in our church. However, what's really, I think, biblical also is, as I mentioned in video number 1, is that you need a broader body of elders or broader body of believers who are holding that pastor and those elders and the church in general accountable. In the non-denominational setting, you might call this the covering. Everybody needs a covering, or even more. Maybe you've heard a mantle of authority. Just to use some of that nomenclature there. But overall, we recognize that there has to be a level of accountability. But what the denominations help us with in this respect is that there's actually a rule of government. For instance, in the Presbyterian Church, you have the elders in our church, for instance, and then you have a presbytery or a group of elders who actually check in on the church, check in on the pastor, provide support for the pastor, provide support for the elders. And so there's a level of accountability that you will have. You'd be surprised that how many pastors go into moral failure. How many pastors, enter into financial lack of integrity. Maybe you've heard of some of this stuff. This is happening. And if you kind of trace it, it happens in all churches. But when you have a system of church government, or how we rule the church, not just on a church level, but on a kind of higher court level, you'll begin to see that it protects the church. It protects you. It protects the pastor. It protects our vision of furthering and advancing the kingdom of God, of making disciples and making Christ the center of all things. I think one of the saddest things we are seeing today is that there's little, if any, accountability structures in leaders or in leadership settings, especially when it comes to the church. And what it does is that it allows for spiritual abuse. It allows for physical abuse, verbal abuse. It allows for unspoken abuse, and people are hurt by it. Okay, pastors remain in those realms of spiritual ministry without being asked, what are you teaching? Why are you teaching it? How's your marriage? And are you financially okay? Is the church financially okay? So I want you to think about that as we consider, reason number 3 why joining a denomination is helpful. It's because it gives another layer of accountability over the elders of the church and the pastor and the sheep. All right, so I hope these are helpful. Again, I invite you to go to epc.org, the Evangelical Presbyterian Church. Click on About. You'll read about their essentials and the freedom that it gives each church to have its distinctives, its own unique covering, unique theology, but also holding to the essentials of the faith. And so again, I want to encourage you, if you have any questions, to contact me. But I really hope these 3 videos give you just a brief kind of understanding of why joining a denomination is helpful. All right? God bless you guys.